I was in Banff a few weeks ago. If you haven't heard of Banff and you're a photographer, well, you are insane, because I think everybody who's ever watched a Peter McKinnon video has wanted to go to Banff. And luckily, I'm fortunate enough to have been able to take a trip there. Now, Banff is pretty much Colorado or Montana on steroids. The most rocky mountains you've ever seen, the bluest lakes you've ever seen. And today I wanted to bring you along editing my photos with me. Now, we're going through a couple different techniques, but my favorite photos have layers to them. So it's got a foreground, it's got a middle, it's got a background. The background's easy at a place like this. You got the mountains. The foreground and the middle are how you can actually differentiate yourself from the others. Everybody has those photos of the wide, epic lakes of Banff. I didn't want those. So some of my photos, yes, they're cliche, but I do think I captured them in a unique way. So let's go into Lightroom, and I'm not going to use any presets or anything. We're just going to be straight up in Lightroom editing this photo from scratch. This is the raw photo. Now look at how blown out this sky was. That's something that I am not very happy about, but luckily with the gear that I have, I was able to save it. Whenever you bring this down, you see that sky is still there. This cloud might be a little bit blown out, but I'm not too mad about it. First, we're going to make basic corrections. Drop the highlights, drop the whites, bring up the shadows, maybe drop the blacks, make that foreground a little bit more interesting. I don't like clarity, so I'm going to drop the clarity, bring up the vibrance, and already we're at a good starting point before and after. Shadows, I'm going to bring them up a little bit more. Now the curves are going to be a powerful tool here. I've been a sucker for that film look recently, but that's not what I'm going for. We don't want grain with these beautiful photos. We want them to be perfect, polished, and look very, very nice. So the midtones are a way that we can try and avoid it looking fake, because we go here, it's like those greens just look terrible, especially with that high contrast. So I'm going to bring that back up. Right here looks like a good starting point, in my opinion. So now come on down and let's mess with these greens. Yellows. There's not a ton of edits that I really want to make to this photo. I think it's a pretty nice photo overall already. Every blue in Banff was this crazy teal blue. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to that hue and we're going to make it look like that. Even if the sky looks a little too blue. You right there see before, after. It's already starting to look very, very nice. Now with those greens, can we make them a little more green? Shift them towards the blue. If we go here, it looks like I'm creating content in like 2016 with my orange and teal. I'm gonna go to the right, make it green, because that's what it looks like. I like keeping my colors relatively natural. Yes, I'll go crazy sometimes, but for the most part, I like natural. The unique thing we're going to do about this photo is separate it into sections. So we're going to do the sky, we're going to do the foreground, and we're going to change it up a little bit. The first section we're going to do this is the sky. So create new mask, then we're going to go to select sky. Right there we have roughly the sky selected, and you see it selected some mountains, so don't do too much. But what I want to do here is I want to really drop the clarity. It gives it this soft, dreamy look. You might not like it, but I do. I think people go back and forth about it, but I think this is kind of how I have found my style. Drop those highlights, and right there we're at a good starting point where already your eye is not distracted by that sky. So the next thing I want to do is, how do I focus myself on this middle portion of the image? An easy way to do that is go here, grab the brush. Bigger brush than we really need, and we're going to go here and we're going to select the border. So I don't want to do a vignette, because then it will darken or brighten this top portion, and you don't want the sky to discolor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that, and I'm going to drop the clarity once again. Maybe do a little dehaze. Already it's focusing more there. What if we drop the sharpness? So it's a unique way to try and not distract from that middle section. I'm feeling pretty good about that right there. But I think the water is still lacking. It's not that bright, and I swear it is very bright in person. So we're going to select that here. Roughly, it does not have to be perfect. You've heard me say this a million times. And then boom, bring it up, drop the highlights, bring out the shadows, and let's pump some saturation. I like that. Now what if we give it a little clarity there? You know, we add a little bit of a punch there, because then your eye really is attracted to that area. Before, after, before, after. I like it. I really, really do. But the thing that I don't like about this photo, and I couldn't get it without it, is these dang people. So how are we going to get them out of there? Let's hop into Photoshop. I've been using Adobe Photoshop Beta a lot recently. And if you live under a rock, you don't know why, but it's because of the generative fill. It really is just a perfect way to remove these people. So go here, and I'm just gonna roughly do actually with just a rectangle. So I clicked M to use the marquee tool, hold shift to make another selection, hold shift again, and then let's go ahead, generative fill, generate. Not even gonna tell it what to do. If you don't tell it what to do, sometimes it ends up doing a better job. Sounds crazy, but I promise it's true. Oh, look at that. It is absolutely perfect and what we wanted. So save it. You see the save in this bottom left-hand corner. Go back to Lightroom, and you wait and you wait and you wait, and I promise it'll be there eventually. So with that photo, I feel very good about where we are, and I think we're ready to move on to the next one. Moving on to this photo right here. Now, this is an iconic photo. I know this is a cliche one. This is at Lake Louise, but we were there in the morning, so the water was pretty much glass. It wasn't all choppy from the canoes and the wind. So this right here, the reflection is absolute money. I'm such a YouTube photographer going to Banff. I'm just realizing that. But let me just show you. I did make a preset for Banff, and it's pretty cool. I think it did a good job. And I just want to show it to you. So if you see the ink pots right there, I think this is a one click. I think it's perfect. If you look at my settings, I'll scroll through quick if you want them. But I promised you, I'm not going to use presets for this. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to reset it. Maybe one day I'll give you those. But that was a cool one where I genuinely think that it was a one-click fix. So drop those highlights, drop those whites to bring that sky back. Lift up those shadows, drop the blacks, bring the vibrance. I've been loving vibrance over saturation recently, especially in a place like this where you want to keep those true greens, you want to keep those true blues. Next thing, my forte, we're dropping the clarity. I don't like sharpness. I don't know. That's just my preference recently. I'm gonna go here some basic curves. So already I'm seeing we gotta bring some of that sky back, but I like whenever I raise the highlights, I get more in the water here. But if I drop the highlights, I get more in the sky. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna raise the highlights to start. I'm not gonna leave the sky like that. Mess with the midtones, pop those greens, and then boom, drop that contrast. That's money. Maybe bring it up a little bit. This looks so good, and I feel like I've barely done anything. A thing to note, when you're at a place like this, it's so much easier to shoot. You're sitting here being like, these photos are so cool. Why don't I take photos like this? I can guarantee you, if you went to Banff, you would probably take just as good photos, if not better than me. Sometimes it's just the scene, especially when it comes to shooting landscapes. So don't be kicking yourself if you don't live in a cool place and you don't get good landscape shots, because this right here is better than any shot I could ever get in Chicago. And I've been living in Chicago for about 5 years now, and they have nothing like this. No matter where you go, you're not going to find a scene this pretty. Sorry. So moving on, we're going to go and we're going to select the sky here. So we're going to bring that down, and right there we fixed our little problem that we had. I'm going to shift it towards the greens because I noticed the sky was a little bit pink. And then we're at a good point right here. Once again, I would go here and I would take them out with a generative fill, but I don't want to do that again. I don't want to waste your time. You know the drill. You know how that works. The only other thing I'm going to do is similar to what we did in the last photo, where I'm going to go here, I'm going to grab a brush, and I'm going to direct your eye to the middle a little bit more. So I'm going to go here to this middle section, roughly select that house in the canoes there, and I'm going to brighten that up. And I don't like how the roof of this looks blue. So what if we warmed this up? I think I like it warmed. Brighten it up. Don't think you have to do too much. You just brighten it up with the exposure, with the whites, maybe the shadows, but you want to make sure you're using a soft brush for that selection so it's not too noticeable. Next thing we're going to do, all we're going to do is we're going to come to this bottom area. All right, select that, select the rocks, drop that clarity even more. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to the selection of the house and I'm gonna add some clarity. Direct your eye to the house. It's one of the best things I've learned to do, and one of the best things that I think can take your photos to the next level. Moving on to the next photo, and the one that I think I got the most comments on throughout this entire trip. This one was at Lake Louise, and this is with the 70-200. Now, whenever I'm traveling, I barely ever use my 70-200. I actually wish I didn't even have to bring it anywhere, but for some reason, I feel like I need to bring this heavy lens everywhere I go. And this is the one time I used it during the trip, and I think it made it all worth it. So you see right here, you got this compression, and you wouldn't be able to get that with any other lens that's in my kit. I'm with a 16-35, a 24-70, and a 70-200. 70mm is not enough for this. This is at 200mm, as you see in the top right. 200mm, 7.1. I think I shot at 7.1 because I wanted to be super sharp, and as you see, zooming in on them, it did just that. It was super bright out. Didn't have to worry about my settings too much. But let's go and edit this. First thing that comes to my mind is it's just not close enough. I wish I had a tighter lens, but that's why you have 45 megapixels in a camera like the Canon R5. So let's crop away. Crop it down. Make sure that they're perfectly centered. And I like that. Part of me even wants to move them up a little bit. I like that. So let's go ahead and start to make some minor adjustments per usual. Bring those shadows up because I want this color coming out of the trees. Up the whites. Bring the blacks up. Vibrance, baby. Give me the vibrance. Drop the clarity. Give it that softer pro mist look. Once again, I love that look. Bring it up. All right. So I like the tone of the water. That is how it looked in real life, but the greens just aren't green enough. So I remember just from editing this photo that it's a very confusing photo for Lightroom to see. So I actually went select sky and it selected the water. Now, I'm not mad at that. It's a weird little bug. I guess because it's blue, it just works. But it's going to work to our advantage because then we can just go water. So shadows up, drop the highlights, give me some saturation. I want it to look blue because that's how it actually looks. And then the nice thing about it selecting the sky like that is you can then go select sky and then right click on that and do invert. So right there, it selects everything but the sky, and I don't want the people selected for this one, so subtract, get the brush, and you're just gonna color over them. So right here, I have all of the trees selected, so we can brighten those up, darken them. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna brighten them, and I'm gonna shift those towards green. Saturate them. Maybe you don't shift them towards green too much because I don't wanna make that little bit of water too green. I think that's the best we're gonna end up going. We can add some saturation. I definitely think maybe hue a little bit so we can make it more green. I think that's it right there. The water doesn't look too different. It just looks like it got this weird little color distortion because of the trees, and the green turned the blue. So I think we're good there. Last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select subject. So now it selected them and it selected the tree. Let's subtract once again. This time I'm gonna go linear gradient, and you can just go there. It's easier than coloring it. You make sure that everything is deselected, and these are red down here. So you see that they are selected, the people. Add some contrast. We're gonna add some clarity on them because I want them to pop. Saturation, brighten them up. I want them to really stand out in this photo. The last thing I think this photo is missing, and the thing I'm going to add, and I promise this is going to be the last thing I talk about in this whole video, so please stick around. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to once again select sky / select water, and I'm going to grab my linear gradient. So I'm going to deselect the whole top very softly. Drop that, and I'm gonna darken this bottom portion. Not too much, but we definitely want to darken it. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna once again select sky, subtract linear gradient, and deselect the bottom portion and brighten that up. It really helps create depth in this photo. Obviously the trees help with that, but right here having this gradient, it directs your eye from the bottom to the top, and I think it's the cherry on top for this photo. If I posted any other photos that you want to see me break down, please let me know. I am more than happy to make a video with those ones. But overall, Banff was probably the easiest place I've ever photographed. That sounds insane, but it is just so stunningly beautiful. You've heard every photographer on this platform talk about it, so I'm going to stop there. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you're not already. Like this video. It means nothing to you. It helps me. And as always, here are a couple photos that I've taken from throughout the past week, 2 weeks, that I think you'll like. Peace.